Okay, so our next episode will be about religion, and specifically, Austin Joseph will be interviewing someone from the Indian Catholic community.
We are often part of various communities that give us a sense of belonging and support, allowing us to connect with others with similar experiences and interests. Communities can be based on geographic location, like neighborhoods or towns, shared identity or culture such as ethnic groups or religious groups, common interests or hobbies such as online gaming, communities or book clubs, professional affiliations like industries and organizations, or any other commonalities that bring people together. Communities can be small, close-knit groups, or large. Well, what is your name?
Hi, my name is Ansa Vicho.
What do you do?
So I'm a senior right now at Montclair State University. I'm in the 5-year BSMS program, and my major is accounting.
Nice. Can you tell me about a community that you are part of?
Sure. I am part of the Indian Catholic community here in New Jersey. So I go to a Catholic church, which is based off of the Syro-Malabar Syrian Rite, and that is founded in a state in India called Kerala. So all of us are from Kerala, and all of us are Christians, and more specifically Catholics. So I go to that church. I've been going to that church since I was 1, and that's a very strong community that I identify with.
And why is this community important to you?
This community is actually very important to me because I consider this my second home. I moved to the United States when I was just 1 from India, and since I've been in the United States, we have gone to this same church, and I have not only has the church seen me grow as a person, but I have seen the church grow so much as well, and it's so important to me because these are the same people that were there for all of my all of my milestones in my life. They were always there to support me through every step of the way, from everything to when I was a little kid receiving my communion to graduating CCD in 12th grade. So they have been there through every step of the way. And just the fact that I've had that stable source of people that I can always go throughout my life, because more often than not, your friends change, the people you're around with change, but for me, this community has been there since I was 1, and now I'm 21, and I'm sure even moving forward that this community will still be in my life.
And what would you say you love most about your community?
What I love most about my community would probably be the sense of love and belonging we have for each other. Like I said, they have been there for me through every step of my life. And it's not just that they've been there for me through every step of my life. We have all been there for each other through every step of our lives. We all know each other's at least most of us know each other's birthdays, anniversaries. We always surprise each other. And I just love the fact that everyone thinks about each other and not just themselves, and is so considerate of everyone's thoughts and needs and likings.
That sounds great. And what cultural or traditional events are most important to your community?
So for my community, because we are a Catholic community, certain feast days for different saints for us are huge, and we have cultural aspects that we tie to it. For example, the procession we do, we have certain umbrellas that you'd only find in India, and we bring those over for our processions. And in terms of our rite as well, we dress up for Mass in our traditional ethnic outfits, so that's something we take a lot of pride in. And we also have usually performances in terms of the recreational side of our festivities. So we perform to typically Indian songs and we dance to them. And we have different cultural celebrations as well. For example, Onam is a festival that we have that's going on right now, in fact, and that doesn't have a religious tie to our church at all, but it's more of a cultural thing that us people from Kerala celebrate. And so for Onam, we actually have our celebration coming up this Sunday, and we make designs on the ground with flowers. We all dress up in our ethnic outfits. There's specific dances that you do on Onam, so we've all been preparing that together. The food you eat on Onam is different, so that all is being prepared by my church together. So those are some of the big cultural and traditional things that we do.
That sounds great. And now, what would you say are some key values or principles that guide your community?
The first key value I'd say would be faith. After all, we are a religious group, and we all share that same faith, and we're very strong in our faith, and that's what has kept us together, I think, for all these years. But in addition to that, I'd say respect that we have for each other. And that's something that culturally belongs to us too. Like, as Indians, we have a lot of respect for our elders and for each other. And I think that respect has brought us this far along, and just the compassion and the genuine love and kindness that we have for one another.
That sounds great. Now, how would you say the community has changed demographically over the years?
Demographically, I'd say we have expanded in terms of our locations and the people that identify with our community. Like I said, I have been part of this community since I was 1. And at the time, my family, we were living in Long Branch, and this church that I'm part of is in Somerset, New Jersey. So we would drive an hour to get to church. And because that was also the only Malayali church that we had around us at the time. But now there are so many churches around us. In fact, I live in Bloomfield right now, and there is an Indian Catholic community in Patterson. But because I've been part of my Somerset church for so long, I still make that hour drive and go there. But in terms of our Indian Catholic community as a whole in New Jersey, I would say demographically we have expanded to more locations. We have so many churches across America right now.
Great. And can you talk about the strengths of this community?
So in terms of the strengths, I think I've already briefly touched upon this, answering a few of the other questions, but I would like to reiterate that. It is the love and respect and the sense of belonging that we have for each other. And a great example of this would be just a few years ago when COVID initially broke out, the coronavirus. My mom, she got very sick with COVID. In fact, she was in the hospital for about 60 days, and she was on life support for 30 of those days. And at that time, it was my dad and I, we also got the coronavirus, so we were stuck downstairs together, and my brother and my grandma, they were upstairs. We had isolated them to make sure that they don't get sick. So there was only so much that we could do with half of our family inflicted with the coronavirus and trying to protect the other half without getting it. But that was when our church community really came through for us, because they would make sign-up sheets for people to cook food for each week, and then someone would always drop off food and groceries and orange juice and stuff like that at our front step, and we would just have to go pick it up. So if there's a reason why my grandma, who's very immunocompromised, and my brother didn't get COVID despite my dad and I both living in that same house, it's probably because our church community made it so easy for us to do so without having to step out at all, for us to be able to plan everything out. And that's just for us at home. Even for my mom in the hospital, the amount of prayers that went to her, there were so many groups like on WhatsApp and GroupMe that were being created to pray for my mom, and that was when I saw the youth side of our community coming so close together, because one group that may not be as strong in their faith within our Indian Catholic community itself is probably the younger generation as opposed to the older one. But during that time, the youth, they all came together. We would do chains of rosaries and stuff for my mom, and that it really, like, I have no words to express how much gratitude and how much love I felt for my community at that time.
Wow. Are there any issues or challenges that are important to this community?
One challenge and issue that I've noticed, and it's not just something that I've experienced, but it's, I think, something that most Indian Catholics that grew up in America have experienced. It's the cultural difference that we have with our parents and with our elders. They all grew up in India, and it's a completely different lifestyle over there than it is coming here to the U.S. And for us, for example, for me, I have been here since I was 1, so I have acclimated to the American culture, but there's certain things that I still am rooted in the Indian culture, but sometimes there's that cultural difference that leads to certain conflicts.
Thank you for the interview.
Of course.
Okay, we've just heard the interview, and I really loved this interview. I really loved how passionate and articulate the interviewee was, and I'm really happy for her that she had a very great experience with her Catholic church.
Yes, I completely agree. I think this interview was very powerful and very all-telling, and definitely gave a lot of information about this community coming from someone who's never really had any experiences with that community. I thought the story of how her church came together to help her family in a time of need was just so amazing and moving. And I think it's great that that community has such a sense of like helpfulness within each other, to where they'll always be there for one another whenever someone needs it.
Yeah, that's the part about the interview that stood out to me the most. I think her community perfectly exemplifies how a church or just any community should be. They should always have that mindset where they care for the needs and well-being of everyone in the group. And yeah, that stood out to me the most.
But besides that, I also think it was interesting to hear that there's cultural differences within the community, like between the generations. Like, I thought that was very interesting, because I would assume that everyone kind of was on like the same like wavelength, and everyone just was accustomed to the same things. But hearing that because some people grew up in India, whereas like younger generations more than likely grew up here in the United States, there's like that difference, or there's a cultural influence of the United States on the younger generation. So it like clashes amongst households, which I just thought that was very interesting.
Well, for me, I understood where she was coming from, because my parents are immigrants, and I was born in America, and like for a lot of people who were born in America but have parents who grew up in another country, there is like this disconnect, because like the people in the older generation, they grew up with like a different set of values, and like she said, a different lifestyle, while in America we have like our own kind of values and our different ways of thinking. So I understood how there's some kind of disconnect, because like the older generation, they might be more strict and like maybe have more traditional opinions, while like the younger generation, they might be more laid back and used to other things. So I got where she was coming from, but with what she was saying overall in the interview, I can tell that everyone's very close and they get along despite their cultural differences.
Well, thank you guys for listening to this episode. We hope you enjoyed, and join us next time for the next edition of our podcast.